Hi, welcome to the CareerSprints YouTube channel. My name is Rohit and we make videos for your professional development and continuous learning. Now in this video, we are going to cover 5 PMP exam questions and the exam mindsets that apply to these questions. Additionally, I'm also going to teach you one very useful PMP exam question solving technique that is going to help you get a large number of questions correct in the real exam. Further, we at CareerSprints.com offer a program called the PMP Blended Programme, which is an end-to-end program for your PMP exam preparation. As part of this program, not only we will help you to get your PMP application approved by writing it for you, but you will also get unlimited mentorship and coaching from a PMP coach to pass your PMP exam along with study materials. This program serves as a one-stop solution to all your PMP prep needs, and you will not need to invest in any other books, courses or materials once you enroll in this program. This program will take care of everything for you. However, let's dive into this video and solve some PMP exam questions. The way we are going to do this is, we are going to do these 5 PMP mindset exam questions, right? And what we are going to essentially do is that, see, there are many different mindsets that you can apply when you are taking the PMP exam. But what we've done is that we've picked, 5 mindsets, that is kind of relevant for your exam. And we are going to give you a question related to that mindset. And after that, we'll give you some time to answer that question. Once you come up with your answer, you can put it in the chat. And once you put it in the chat, we will reveal the answer to you. And once we reveal the answer to you, after that, we will also explain you the explanation. We will tell you what is the correct answer, and we will explain the mindset that is being applied here. So this will help you quite a bit to prepare for the exam and just be able to answer test questions better. So we will be doing more classes like these, but in this class, we will be covering the 5 PMP exam mindset questions, right? So this is the first question. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to read the question to you. I will not read the options. You can read the options yourself. I'll just read the question, and then I'll give you a couple of maybe a minute or 2 minutes to think, and then you can come up with your answer. So the question: during a critical milestone review meeting, the project manager notices that one of the business analysts, who is normally proactive and consistently meets deadlines, has recently begun missing commitments and seems unusually disengaged during team discussions. The analyst gives short, vague responses and avoids eye contact. The quality of their deliverables has also declined noticeably over the past 2 weeks. What should the project manager do next? So take a minute, think about the answer, read the question properly, and put it in the chat. Answer? If you do, okay, great. So the answer that people have given are D, right? So speak privately with the analyst to understand what is causing the sudden change in performance and offer support if needed. Okay, great. Right. So that's the correct answer. So the correct answer is actually D. It is not C. Let's look at the question, right? So the way I always recommend people to answer test questions is you can use this technique or this trick, right? So one of the things about this class is to also help you understand a technique that you can use, right? This is a technique that has been very useful for a lot of people when they're trying to answer questions. So what you do is that when you read the question, what you do is you imagine it to be an open-ended question. Imagine for a moment that there is no option that's given to you, right? So you think of it like an open-ended question, and then you try to come up with your own answer, right? So when you read the question, you will understand what the question is about, right? You think of your own answer, and then what you do is that you look at the options and you see which options comes closest to your answer, right? Now, the way you kind of do this is that you need to have a good understanding of project management, and you really need to think through what would be your answer when you're trying to use this technique, right? So let's try this technique and see whether it works or not. Okay, so it says during a critical milestone review meeting, the project manager notices that one of the business analysts, who is normally proactive and consistently meets deadlines, has recently begun missing commitments and seems unusually engaged during team discussions. So basically, what's happening is that a meeting is going on, right? It's a milestone review meeting. There's a PM. The PM notices that there's a business analyst. Usually, this business analyst is very proactive and talks and explains stuff. But this person has started missing commitments and does not seem very interested. Then they go on to say the analyst gives short, vague responses and avoids eye contact also. The quality of their deliverables has also declined noticeably over the past 2 weeks. What should the project manager do next? Right? So there's a couple of options that are given. But before we go to the option, let's try to answer the question on our own, right? So they're saying that there's a business analyst. The business analyst has not been very responsive. The quality of the work has also declined. What should the project manager do? So the way you always want to answer questions is that you want to think like a mature project manager or like a mature manager. Even if you're not a project manager, just as a manager, right? You want to act like a mature person. So you're not going to pull out the person and start asking questions to that person in the meeting, right? But yet you need to resolve this problem. So the first thing is that everyone in your project, whether it's your team or it's people who report to you or people that you coordinate with, like your functional managers or sponsors, they're all your stakeholders, right? So one of the critical things that you want to do is that you want to check in with your stakeholder. You want to talk to your stakeholder to see what is really going on, especially if something wrong is going on, right? And in general, you do need to have reviews with your stakeholders continuously throughout the project, but specifically when something is going wrong, you want to talk to your stakeholder. So here, the most logical thing to do is, what, the person has not been responsive, let's try to talk to this person, right? So let's say our answer is try to talk to this person, right? And a better thing to do would be to actually talk to this person, not in the meeting, but maybe one to one, right? So let's say our answer is talk to this person one to one. Now you look at the options. So it says reassign the analyst pending task to another team member to protect the schedule, right? Why would you do this, right? This is not a good way to handle it. It's like saying, you know what, you're not doing a good job. I'm just going to take your work and give it to someone else. That is just being immature and that is demoralizing for the person, right? So the project manager also needs to uphold the morale of the person, right, who he or she is managing. So that's wrong. Facilitate a meeting with the entire team to discuss performance expectations and reinforce accountability, right? Again, this is a specific problem with a specific person. Why do you need to involve the whole team, right? Maybe you want to involve the whole team, but you don't want to do that right now. You speak to the person one on one. So that's not the next thing that you will do, right? So it's also important to read the last line of the question. What should the project manager do next, right? So they're asking you what is the next step that you're taking. Send the analyst a private message asking if everything is okay and request an update on any challenges they may be facing, right? Now, this is not a bad option, right? Yes, you are trying to speak to the analyst privately. You're asking the analyst if everything is okay. But, is that the most emotionally intelligent response? When you can actually go and speak to the person one on one, why do you want to just, talk to someone over Slack or over a private message? So let's put C as a dot, right? We will not put this as the answer. Let's put it as a dot, right? So a dot basically means that you're not sure whether it's the correct answer or not, but maybe it's the correct answer. Let's look at the fourth option. Speak privately with the analyst to understand what is causing the sudden change in performance and offer support if needed, right? So if you compare C to D, D is a much better option. So here you are speaking privately with the analyst, you're understanding why the behavior has changed, and you're also offering support, right? So D would be the more emotionally intelligent response. So what you need to understand is that as a PM, you need to practice emotional intelligence, right? What do I mean by emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence basically means that you need to recognize your own emotions, and you also need to be able to read the emotions of other people, right? So you need to have some social awareness, right? So that is the key element that they're trying to bring out here. So if you look at the explanation, it says speak privately with the analyst to understand the sudden drop in performance and offer support. Emotional intelligence requires recognizing emotional cues and addressing them through empathetic one-on-one dialogue, right? So this is a key element about being emotionally intelligent, and you're going to see quite a few questions in the exam on this aspect, right? So you need to understand your own emotions, and you also need to understand the emotions of other people. So it says a private conversation allows the PM to explore root causes, listen actively, and provide help without embarrassing the team member. So you don't want to take an extreme response as well by calling out the team member in a public setting, right? Only after understanding the situation should the PM consider task adjustments, workload balancing, or process actions. Those come after the emotional behavior concern is addressed, right? So the good thing is that as a PM, you want to address things privately, right? Especially if someone has a problem. Then later on, if you realize that it may spill over onto the team, then you can involve the team. But the first thing is you try to talk to the person privately. So keep this in mind when you're trying to choose your answers. Okay. So let's look at the wrong answer, right? The closest wrong answer. Close but still insufficient. Messaging avoids real conversation, tone, and emotional nuance. EI requires direct human interaction. Written check-ins can be misinterpreted and rarely uncover true root causes. Right? So that is the answer to the first question. Let's move on to the second one. So I'm going to read the question. I will not read the options. I will give you time to think about the answer and then choose your answer. So question, your project team is struggling with a new data mapping tool introduced by the client. Several defects are appearing because team members are using the tool inconsistently. During the retrospective, junior developers request that you, the project manager, conduct a training session since you understand the tool well and have used it on previous projects. What should you do next? So take a minute, think about your answer, and then provide the answer. We have a couple of answers. So let's read the question. Your project team is struggling with a new data mapping tool introduced by the client. Several defects are appearing because team members are using the tool inconsistently. During the retrospective, junior developers request that you, the PM, conducts a training session since you understand the tool well and have used it on previous projects. What should you do next? Okay. Now let's break this question down. Again, we will try to apply the same technique. So we will think that the answer is probably not given. The options are not there. We'll try to answer it as an open-ended question. So it's saying the team is struggling with some tool, right? Doesn't matter what the tool is, right? Introduced by the client. Then it says several defects are appearing because the team members are using the tool inconsistently, which means a new tool has been introduced, but the team members don't really understand the tool that well. Then it says during the retrospective, some junior developers say that as the PM, you conduct a training session since you understand the tool well and you've used it in the past. So the first question is to ask yourself, what is the problem in the question? So the problem is the team does not know how to use the tool, right? And they're having a retrospective and they're saying, you know what, we don't know how to use the tool. So the question is, what should you do as the PM? So you need to teach them how to use the tool, right? So one of the answers is, then if we need to teach them, we need to train them, right? So that's the first question. Does the team need training on the tool? So the answer is yes. Now the second question is, does the team need to be trained by me, the project manager, because they're asking me to train, or do I have someone else that can train the team? Do I really have the time to train the team on using the tool? Right? I'm a PM, right? So I have a lot of other things to do. So I may not really have the time to train the team on the tool. So let's look at the options. Our answer is that fine, we will provide training about the tool, and whether I will train or someone else will train, we will see, right? We will look at what the option says. Then it says, facilitate a training session yourself since you have expertise and the team needs immediate support, right? So, in most cases, the project manager would not really want to train the team, right? Unless there is no other trainer available, right? Or any other subject matter expert available, right? So let's put a dot here because the team does need training, right? So the first part of the answer, facilitate a training session, is correct, right? You do want to facilitate a training session for the team. Then option B, assess the team's competency gaps and arrange for qualified senior team members or external experts to deliver the needed training, right? So yes, this is looks like a strong choice. So there is some competency gaps, and you can find other people in the company or external experts to deliver training. So that let's put a dot even here. So that could be one of the possible answers. Update the training plan and ask the team to self-study the tool using available online resources, right? The team is really struggling, right? If they had to study on their own, they could have done it anyway, right? So that may not be the best answer. Escalate the issue to the sponsor and request additional time to deal with the team skills limitations. Now see, the fourth option, right? This is an issue, right? Because the team is producing defective products, right? So there is an issue about defects. But the question is, do you really want to escalate to the sponsor, right? Usually, you will escalate to the sponsor only when you notice that this is beyond your authority. So the question that you have to ask yourself as a PM, is it beyond my authority? So this is like another mindset thing, right? Another mindset principle. The project manager never would escalate to a sponsor until and unless it grows beyond his or her authority. So for example, in an emergency situation, the project manager may need to escalate, right? But if it is not beyond the project manager's authority, right, the project manager would not escalate. So only exceptional situations would be escalated. So between A and B, the better answer would be B, right? Or Bravo. Because the fact is that although the team needs training, it's better to get subject matter experts to train the team rather than the PM trying to train the team. So it says the project manager's responsibility is to ensure the team receives the right training, not to act as the default trainer. This follows the PMP mindset and ECO task, which is the exam content outline task of determining training needs and selecting the best training option. Right? A PM can deliver training only when they are the sole or best qualified expert, but the scenario does not state that. Therefore, the correct action is to analyze skill gaps and coordinate proper training through senior team members or SMEs. This preserves the PM focus on leadership, team capability building, and resource management. Okay, so that is the mindset that is being applied. So, this is related to training needs. So the project manager needs to facilitate training when the team needs some kind of training. Question 3. Your project involves developing a new internal workflow automation tool expected to take 14 months to complete. Several key stakeholders express concern that waiting more than a year to see results may reduce enthusiasm and make it difficult to validate whether the solution actually delivers business value. They request more frequent proof that the project is on track and worth the investment. What should the PM do to address these concerns and demonstrate value early? So I'll give you a minute, think of the answer and put your answer in the chat. So do we have answers? Okay, so let's quickly read through the question. So it says your project involves developing a new internal workflow automation tool expected to take 14 months to complete. Several key stakeholders express concerns that waiting for more than a year to see results may reduce enthusiasm and make it difficult to validate whether the solution actually delivers business value. They request more frequent proof that the project is on track and worth the investment. What should the PM do to address these concerns and demonstrate value early? Okay. So let's understand what the problem in the question is. So they're saying that you have 14 months to build a tool, but stakeholders are expressing concern, saying that's a very long time. We need to validate the solution earlier to see if it's actually delivering business value, and they want more proof, right? So how should the project manager go about addressing these concerns? So so this question is basically hinting at agile. So what they're basically saying is that, customers want to see or stakeholders want to see business value early, right? How do you ensure that business value is delivered early? The way you ensure that people are able to see value early is one of the ways to do this is to create a prototype or to create MVPs of the product and keep showing that to the end user or the stakeholder, right? So the correct answer here is going to be B. Have the team break down the work to create a minimum viable product or early prototype that stakeholders can interact with. Now, if you look at the other options, extend the schedule to add more review meetings. Fair enough, you can do that, but why would you need to extend the schedule for that, right? So the first part of the answer is not good. So, that will be wrong. Update the risk register to document concerns about delayed value realization. Yeah, I mean, you can update this because this is a risk. But having said that, the question is asking you, how do you address these concerns and demonstrate value early? So, option C is not, you're just documenting it as a risk. It's not addressing these concerns in any way, right? You're not coming up with a risk response. So that's also wrong. Have the team create detailed workflow mockups and process diagrams to show how the final product will function. While you can do that, right? You can create mockups, you can show screens, you can show process diagrams. They will give some confidence to the stakeholder, but there's nothing better than actually letting stakeholders use an actual MVP product, right? Use an actual product. So option B, that's why it becomes the best answer. So using prototypes is a very good way to demonstrate early value to stakeholders. Prototypes or using any types of MVPs. So one of the things that you need to remember about the exam is that the exams has a huge focus on value, right? Especially business value. And you really want to show to your stakeholders that you're able to deliver business value early and incrementally. So this is the agile concept of um, if you look at the Agile manifesto, it kind of ties into the Agile manifesto that's there, right? So it says build an MVP or building an MVP or early prototype aligns directly with the mindset principle of showing progress through tangible outputs. So mindset covered, show progress through tangible outputs like MVPs or prototypes to deliver value early and validate direction. Okay, so you can read through the explanations later on. Question 4. Your team is building a custom reporting module. Work is underway and several work packages are being executed in parallel. During a routine walkthrough of completed work, you notice that a few delivered reports do not follow the formatting and data definitions established in the approved scope baseline. The team explains that they made small adjustments because they believed the new format looked better and felt more useful. The sponsor is expecting a status update tomorrow. What should the project manager do next? So read the question, take a minute, and then put your answer in the chat. The options, let's look at the answer. So it says your team is building a custom reporting module. Work is underway and several work packages are being executed in parallel. During a routine walkthrough of completed work, you notice that a few delivered reports do not follow the formatting and data definitions established in the approved scope baseline. The team explains that they made small adjustments because they believe the new format looked better and felt more useful. What should the project manager do next? Okay, so let's understand the problem in the question. So they're saying that some reports were delivered and they did not follow the format and the original requirements basically that were given in the scope baseline. So the team decided to make small adjustments because they felt that the new format looked better and felt more useful. So firstly, it's important to understand what the problem is in the question. So basically, the whatever was produced did not conform to original requirements, and then the team went on to actually make adjustments on their own, right? So the question is, what should the PM do next? So there are 4 options. So the first option is review the variance, determine whether the deviation impacts the scope baseline, and submit a change request if necessary, right? So there has been a variance, right? There has been a variance from the original requirement. So that's correct. Determine whether the deviation impacts the scope baseline. It does impact the scope baseline. And because it's impacting the scope baseline or any kind of baseline, you need to submit a change request. So that seems like one of the good answers. So we'll put a dot there. Next, it says instruct the team to stop making changes, reinforce the approved scope baseline, and direct them to revise the deliverables to conform to the original requirements, right? So firstly, there has been a variance, right? So you need to first understand what is the variance and why it happened. So just instructing the team to stop making changes, right, is not really going to work, right? It says reinforce the approved scope baseline and direct them to revise the deliverables to conform to the original requirements. But before you kind of ask them to revise the deliverables and conform to the original requirements, you want to understand why it happened in the first place, right? So that does not look like the best answer, so we will cancel that out. Communicate the findings to the sponsor during tomorrow's status meeting and ask whether they approve of the changes that are being made. These are unapproved changes, so nobody really approved it. So the team cannot just go ahead and make these changes on their own, right? They need to run it by the project manager or by subject matter experts before they make the change. Update the quality, so that's wrong. Update the quality management plan to specify acceptable formatting standards based on the team's improvements. So, see, in the quality management plan, you do have quality standards, right? But again, when you're making an update to a plan, right, you need to ensure that a change request is raised before you update any baseline plan. And a quality management plan is a baseline plan. And, the thing is that there has been an off specification, right, or a variance from the original requirement. So you first want to check why it happened, what happened, and then you want to decide whether you're going to take the team's recommendation of changing the format itself or changing the standards of the format. So this is not something that you would do next. You may do this later on, but this is not something that you would do next. So the best answer is B, right? So it says explanation. The PM has identified a deliverable that does not match the approved scope baseline, which means the situation belongs to monitoring and controlling. So there's another thing that you need to also kind of take away from this question, that this question, so in the exam, they expect you to be able to differentiate between initiating, planning, monitoring and controlling, closing, executing. And people get confused between planning and initiating, or sometimes people get confused between monitoring and controlling and executing, right? So in this question, if you see, the question, if you read the question, you will realize that the project manager is actually carrying out the monitoring and controlling process, right? Because he's doing a walkthrough of the completed work. So he's kind of checking the, monitoring and controlling the completed work. So it says before directing the team or changing any work, the PM must first analyze the variance to determine whether a formal change request is required. So in predictive projects, the way you go about changes is that you first document the change using a change request, then you analyze the change, and then you decide what you're going to do with the change, like taking a corrective action. So the mindset that is covered is when a variance appears, analyze it and use a formal change control before directing corrective work. Okay. Any questions on these questions so far? I hope you are enjoying, the session and you are finding it useful. Okay. Let's look at the next question. So midway through a sprint in your hybrid project, friction emerges between the QA and development teams about interpretation of acceptance criteria. The tension is slowing progress, but the governance plan states that escalation is required only for scope changes, budget impacts, or delays exceeding 10 days. Current delays are estimated at 3 to 4 days and no baseline changes are needed yet. The product owner privately suggests escalating early just to be safe. What should the PM do next? So please review the options and choose the best answer that you think. The answer options. And before that, we'll go through the questions. So it says midway through a sprint in your hybrid project, friction emerges between the QA and the development teams about interpretation of acceptance criteria. The tension is slowing progress, but the governance plan states that escalation is required only for scope changes, budget impacts, or delays exceeding 10 days. Current delays are estimated at 3 to 4 days and no baseline changes are needed yet. The product owner privately suggests escalating early just to be safe. What should the PM do next? So let's again, try to break down the question. So basically there are two teams. There's a QA team and there's a development team. they are having some debate about acceptance criteria. They don't agree on something. Because of this, their work is slowing down. The progress is slowing down. Now there's a governance plan for the project where it says that you will need to escalate only when there's a scope change, budget impact, or a delay that is exceeding 10 days, right? But even with this issue that's going on between the two teams, the delay that is estimated is only 3 to 4 days, right? And it is not even causing a baseline change. But the product owner, just to be safe, is saying, you know what, escalate to whoever, like a project sponsor. Or so the question is, what should the PM do next? So the question here is, should you escalate or should you not escalate, right? Should the project manager directly deal with the team first, or should the project manager just escalate, right? So it says, facilitate a working session with both teams to clarify expectations and resolve the issues directly, right? Now if you look at the question, it's saying, escalation is required only for a scope change or a budget change or some delay that is exceeding 10 days. None of that is happening, right? So this is within the authority of the project manager, right? So the project manager can just try to resolve this issue on its own by ensuring that the teams talk to each other. So option A kind of leans more towards that. So let's put a dot here. Question option B, escalate to the sponsor since the conflict is already affecting sprint progress. Yes, it is affecting sprint progress, but it has not yet reached a point where it goes beyond the authority of the PM, right? So management by exception. So this is not an exceptional situation. So the project manager would escalate to the board or the sponsor only when there's an exception. Ask the product owner to escalate because acceptance criteria falls under their domain, right? Again, right, the project manager can ask the product owner to escalate, but the question is, does this require escalation, right? And although the product owner defines the acceptance criteria, it is the team's job to meet the acceptance criteria, so the team can directly speak to the product owner and actually can clarify this, right? About what really is the acceptance criteria, right? Or what does the acceptance criteria mean to the product owner? Wait to act unless the delay crosses the escalation threshold. Obviously, right? Why do you not? Why would you not solve a problem if you already have identified a problem? So there are two mindsets here. One is that a PM needs to be proactive. So this is something that you need to think about in the exam. A mature PM is always proactive. The mature PM will not wait for, so if there's a fire in your room, right, you're not going to wait for the whole house to go or to start burning, right? You will try to put out the fire in your room first. So that's the same logic. So if you've identified a problem, you want to kill it as early as possible, right? So option D is not a good answer because the PM is not being proactive. The PM is being proactive, and also the PM is resolving the problem that is being highlighted in the question. So these are the 5 questions that I wanted to discuss, and here is the mindset. So it says, resolve team issues at your level and escalate only when the situation exceeds your defined authority or escalation thresholds. So this is another critical mindset element that you need to be aware of when you are answering test questions. Okay, so these are the 5 questions that I wanted to cover. I not only covered just solving questions, but I also told you what are the mindsets that you need to be aware of, right? Think of these as blind spots, right? If you're not aware of these blind spots, you will land up making mistakes. So these are good. Don't use them as guidelines, right? Use this as guidance, right? These are not really guidelines. You will make a mistake in the exam because you may have got a lot of questions right in this session, but in the real exam, it can be tricky quite a bit. So read the question properly. Try to first answer the question without looking at the options. That's a method that you can try. And once you have your own answer, then you try to look at the options and you see which option matches with your answer, right? So that's a good technique that you can use, especially in like very difficult questions. So thank you so much everyone for coming to the class. And it's our also most popular program. So if you see, it shows you blended program. I'm going to tell you what it basically involves. So the blended program is firstly an end-to-end program. So once you invest money in this program, you don't need to invest money in anything else at all. You get all the resources, you get the PDUs, you get personalized coaching, you get classroom sessions. So you pretty much get everything that you need in terms of preparation, right? So the way we do the blended program is that once you're on board, the first thing that we do as part of the blended program is get your application approved. So we will write your application and we will get your application approved, right? Once your application is approved, then you kind of really dive into the program, right? You start going through the course in depth, right? So we have an e-learning course. You start going through it in a lot of depth, right? And we also assign you a coach. So every week, as you're going through the e-learning course, right, you will be meeting with your coach. So your coach will give you a target, and then at the end of the week, you need to meet with your coach, and you will have a review with your coach. So we kind of do this week after week after week, right? And once you kind of finish all the videos, all the modules, all the tests, everything that's there in the e-learning course, then we start giving you practice exams. So we'll give you a 50 questions, 100 questions, a 200 questions exam, right? And you kind of solve more than 1,000 questions. Along with these questions, we also give you resources from the internet, that we've identified, which is very useful for your prep, right? These could be videos, these could be other tests that we found on the internet, these could be some stuff that we arrange from our partners. So we give you, a lot of different ways of learning and resources as well. And throughout this process, as you go through the blended program, you're constantly meeting with your coach, right? So you're either meeting over a phone call or a Zoom call. In between, you can always send a chat message. You can connect with your trainer or your coach through WhatsApp. So there are so many different ways that you can kind of be in touch. So pretty much the support that you get from a coach is unlimited. And this is especially useful for people who are not very sure about their preparation, right? Who need proper structure and guidance, who don't want to waste a lot of time, right? Using multiple resources and not knowing whether they are ready or they are not. Because we've noticed this as a pattern that people who are trying to prepare on their own or have gone through a boot camp, they waste a lot of time trying to figure out what are the best resources to prepare. You don't need a lot of resources, you just need the right resources. And because we are in this industry, we work with students day in day out. Every single week we have a couple of students clearing the PMP exam. We exactly know what is being tested, we share those lessons with you, right? We tell you what are the right resources to use, we help you build the exam mindset, we provide you with motivation and guidance and personalized support. So you pretty much get everything. You don't really need to go anywhere else and waste your money on other things for prep, right? So this is a very useful program. And just to give you a cost idea, this is 1/3 the cost of what you would pay for a very expensive classroom program or any other type of program, right? So it's the best of personalized coaching, e-learning, some classroom training. So it's a good mix of everything, right? And usually in 2-3 months, you will be able to clear the exam, with the blended program. So if this is something that is of interest to you, I can send you the link. You can request a quote. We also have Thanksgiving and Black Friday sales going on. So this is the time to actually, like, if you're interested really in, going through our program and, doing your PMP in 2-3 months, this is a good time to sign up. This is when we give our lowest prices in the entire year, right? So please, go to that link. Please fill it up. Just enter your details. Somebody from my team will call you, will talk to you, right? And then we can go from there.